I had a chance to sit down with Gary Ward on Tuesday out at Fisherman Supply in Point Pleasant to kind of go through this amazing experience that he had, and then perhaps also offer a little bit of advice for you at home.
So we planned the fluke trip, and we know that the Spanish, the bonita, and the mahi normally come in this time of year, so we always prep for that. We've seen the bluefin in previous years, the last 3 years, from about August until the end of October in close. We've never been able to actually get on them because they're always a little too far away, anywhere from a quarter to a half mile away. And by the time we get to them, they're down. So yesterday, when we finally got out, we were heading out towards the Sea Girt Reef. We were about 2 miles off, and we started to see some Spanish flashing. So we stopped, and we were just kind of hanging out in the area. It was just a blank area. We started to notice little bait balls on the surface. They looked like little rainfish or little spearing. So we started fluking, and then all of a sudden, the first football came out. And then they just erupted around us, and we were able to hook up on one, and then they pushed back down. We landed the one, got a good release on it, got some pictures, and then we started fluke fishing again, thinking that was it, but that made the day. So it was about an hour later, 2 boats were on top of us, and we had pushed a little bit closer to the reef, probably about another quarter mile to a half mile out, and they blew up again right in front of us, and we were able to hook up on our second and third fish out of that pod. And I think there's really no I mean, epic is the word that can be used. You just don't expect it, but when it finally happens, it's just one of those things. It's amazing.
What were you throwing?
We were throwing, it's just a little metal. It's similar to your epoxy jig or crippled herring or anything like that. I don't even know the name of the brand.
Color or speed didn't seem to matter at this point?
It did not matter. I mean, I got 4 cranks on the reel each time that it landed near them, and that was it. The last school that we were up on was a very large school of bluefin, and there were some fish 60 to 80 pounds in with the smaller ones. And I don't know if that's what caused the littler ones to be more competitive, but they were a foot to 2 foot off the side of the kayak rolling on the surface while I was hooked up. And it was a scene out of National Geographic. It was like, you know, if you watch the guys that hand feed the giants, it was similar to that. We could have literally just hand fed these tuna yesterday right off the side of the kayak. It's something that you'll never forget, and it'll always be that memory that you have stored in the back of your head.
Now, I mentioned that boat traffic earlier at the start of this week's video, and that whole concept of stealth in the kayak fishery, especially when you're considering the squirreliness of some of these pelagics. It's something for which Gary had an interesting angle in describing his particular Hobie kayak.
I run out of the Hobie PA 12 in camo. I have it decked out with a Torqeedo 403 ultralight motor. It pushes me about 5 miles an hour. I got a range of about 10 to 15 miles running, you know, full throttle here and there all day. After the first one was landed, a couple of boats came up on us, and they started working the area, and that put the fish down immediately. So the engine noise is definitely going to push the fish down. So the more boats you have, the more likely it's going to be harder for you as a kayak angler to successfully catch and land one of them, because they're such a fast moving fish.
Of course, the immediate question that I had, and especially tuna guys are going to have, is what about the HMS permit? Because you don't think about a guy in a kayak getting his HMS permit. As you know, to target bluefin, yellowfin, big eye, longfin, sharks, marlin, etc., you need to pay the $26 fee over at hmspermits.noaa.gov. HMS permits, just look up HMS permits. So most guys wouldn't think you can register a kayak, but if you get the whole number, for example, as Gary's going to talk about, if you get an outboard on there, special kicker motor on that kayak, you're going to have to get the whole number. But what Gary has found out is that you can get that HMS permit for a kayak?
So you have to go on their website, and well, I've done this a couple times. I've been on their website to try to get my HMS permit. You just have to fill out your information as far as your state registration number. So when you get your kayak and you put a motor on it, you have to register your motor or register your kayak. So once I did that, it made me eligible to do that. Now I have heard of one case, my buddy Keith Boland, who has a kayak that does not have a motor, but he did, and he was able to get a HMS permit. So he's actually going to be helping me later get mine, so that this way next time when we're out there, I can bring one back in.
Of course, anybody that's got their HMS permits, just keep in mind, we've got to report our catches. Bluefin, if you're throwing them back, catching them, whatever, make sure you do your reporting, whether you've got a 46, a 62, or a 12-foot kayak. If you get that HMS permit, make sure you do your reporting. One last thought. As someone who both kayaks and runs a little center console, you need to be seen. As much as stealth is a key benefit of being out there on a kayak, you don't want to be too stealthy off the beach in 2 to 4 foot swells, especially when guys are on a smaller center console and you're lower to the water. It's very hard to see. So I would really encourage you to keep some of Gary's advice in mind as you're gearing up for kayak fishing.
Make sure you have a handheld VHF radio, and the number one thing, have a flag. Make sure that the boats can see you. Make sure that you're visible enough to the surrounding area that they don't think you're just a lobster pot, because you can get hurt.